First time?
You're new here, aren't you?
Someday, somewhere, I'll make a difference.
It's a mockery.
I mean, we're not some deep space franchise. This station is about something.
The year is 2023. The name of the podcast, Babylon 5, for the first time.
Welcome to Babylon 5 for the first time, not a Star Trek podcast. My name is Jeff Akin, and I'm watching Babylon 5 for the first time.
And I'm Brent Allen, and I'm also watching Babylon 5 for the very first time. Jeff and I are two veteran Star Trek podcasters watching Babylon 5 for the very first time, and in it, we are taking that analytical lens we have gained as Star Trek podcasters, and we're applying it right here to Babylon 5, and also just determining how much we really like the series.
And we are Star Trek podcasters, but this is a podcast about Babylon 5, not Star Trek. So to keep us honest, we play the rule of 3. That means we each get up to and no more than 3 references to Star Trek apiece.
That's it. 3. One of those plays. No substitutions, exchanges, or refund.
Hey, Brent.
Hey, Jeff.
We have a 5-star review.
Oh, yes.
This is off of Apple Podcasts, and I'm giving his name because he gave it in the review. His name is Tony.
What's up, T-Man?
Tony says, a podcast review for the first time. I started a new job a few months ago that brought with it a much longer commute. I figured it'd be a good time to find some podcasts to start listening to. In my search for a good sci-fi related one, I somehow stumbled on this one about one of my favorite shows ever, Babylon 5. I listened to Jeff and Brent's first episode last month, and I was immediately hooked. It's been an absolute joy catching up and reliving this wonderfully complex show through them as they watch it for the first time. I appreciate that this is not a Star Trek podcast, but the hosts use that franchise as a springboard to compare and contrast the themes and structure of Babylon 5 while respectfully acknowledging that it is its own unique thing. With each episode, they critique they are finding the joy and the warts of the show that I made a point to follow every week almost 30 years ago. They love to make predictions about what the next episode will be about and where the storyline is headed. Sometimes I shake my head and laugh at how wrong they are or will be. But other times, I get almost as giddy as my friend who danced on stage with Claudia Christian at a sci-fi convention many cycles ago when the hosts come really close in their predictions. It's a blast. Jeff and Brent, keep up the excellent work, and thank you for giving me and others like me something fun and worthwhile to listen to on my Monday commute to and from work.
You know what, Jeff? Just for Tony, I want to give Tony's review its own, oh yeah, hit that sweet button just for Tony.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. That was a great review. Tony gets it. So many of you guys out there get it. A few don't, and that's okay.
It's fine.
But Tony gets it, man. Like, to come in and, you know, Jeff, we had to defend this a lot back in like season 2 and some during here season 3. But I think most of the people are really kind of settling in that it's not comparing it to Star Trek. It's using the analytical lens we gained as Star Trek podcasters to talk about this show. But we also, as much as we compare it to Star Trek, we also talk about Stargate, and we talk about Battlestar Galactica, and we talk about Star Wars, and we talk about Princess Bride, and we talk about
Three Amigos.
Yeah, exactly. Right. We talk about everything with Firefly, all of them. And it's nice to hear that people understand, because we still see people like, oh, you can't compare this show to Star Trek. Like, we're starting to ask the question. It's not just, okay, how Star Trek is it? And then how much did we like the episode? But it's, yeah, there's that message, but it did it in a Babylon 5 way. Like, it's doing it in its own way. And I love getting into those types of conversations as well.
Well, Brent, we have another 5-star review.
Oh, yes.
This one's also from Apple Podcasts. DWU1989 says, enjoying the ride. Jeff and Brent bring their love of Star Trek to the world of Babylon 5 as they enjoy the beloved show for the very first time. It's a great listen as they try to tease the Star Trek out of the show and try to pick up on the plot threads that will carry through. Highly recommend.
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb, DWU, that you go to Dakota Wesleyan University.
Whoa.
Just going to throw it out there. I could be right. I'm probably right. I could be way wrong, though. Dakota Wesleyan University. That's this person's a student or faculty or some other connection out there to it. Just guess.
They're the person who graduated in 89. They own that. It's
right.
Theirs.
Right.
Well, listen, Brent, one of the cool things about our podcast, Babylon 5 for the first time, and the show itself, Babylon 5, is that it's set up in seasons, right? And at the end of each season, we like to look back and see all of the incredible things that we nailed, like Sinclair being Valen, and all the things that we missed. I really can't think of any because we kind of nail it.
Anna Sheridan's being a space zombie.
She's a space zombie. She's a Morden.
No way.
It's going to happen. But we have this fun show at the end of each season where we do that. And in that show, we give away some super cool stuff. And this time around, we're giving away 3D printed Starfuries from our incredible friend Wash, who on his own, out of the generosity and kindness of his heart, created. If you're on our YouTube channel, you can see Brent holding it up right now. Now, he's got one, but we got two. So what you need to do is you need to go write a review for our podcast, take a screenshot of it, send it into us at babylon5first@gmail.com or tag it on Twitter at babylon1st. Or frankly, we also see these. So if you just do the review, that'll do. But we are going to pick two people in that wrap up to receive one of these Starfuries.
Now, I will say this, Jeff. While absolutely not necessary to win, it would not hurt your chances out there if you have already sent in a review, because we're backdating this. Anyone who's ever done a review is eligible to win, right, Jeff?
100%.
Like, this isn't just about getting new reviews. This is for
everybody.
Honestly, it's a way to reward those who took an extra step to shout out the show, right? So at any point, if you have sent in a review, that is enough to make you enter in. But I'm just saying, it couldn't hurt your chances to go take a screenshot and email it or tweet it to us anyway, no matter how long it's been out there.
So if you're on the fence, God, I like this show, it's pretty great, or man, I hate this show and I just can't stop watching, listening to see what they do, go write that review. You don't even have to give us a 5-star. It can be 1. We got a couple 1-star reviews. Got some 2s, 3s. We run the gamut. Cool. We just love hearing from you, right?
We prefer the 5. I just want to be clear. We prefer the 5.
Like just like sending us the screenshots, not necessarily going to help your chances. 5-star reviews, not necessarily going to help your chances. But if you do happen to write a 5-star review, you know what you do get?
Oh, yes.
Just like Tony. Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Brent.
We love playing games here on the show. Lots of games that we do. One of those games we like to do comes at the end of the show, where we look at next week's episode. We try to guess what next week's episode is going to be. This is frankly one of the things we hear from our listeners out there about one of the things they love the most. I mean, even Tony in our review was like, I love listening to them predict what the next episode is going to be and what's going to happen, because they're oftentimes hilariously wrong. And this is the part where we go back and look at what we predicted this episode was going to be last week and decide, or just see how hilariously wrong we were. So, Jeff, do you remember what you predicted Gray 17 is Missing was going to be about? How close were you?
Stand by. We'll be right back. Are you ready to take your Babylon 5 for the first time experience to the next level? With our exclusive Patreon, you'll get access to all kinds of cool stuff that you can only find there. Our recording notes, unedited reaction videos, an exclusive Discord community. And you can even be listed as a producer of the show. Plus, we even offer exclusive meet and greets and hangouts. You won't find this kind of experience anywhere else. Get all these amazing benefits, plus the opportunity to interact with other fans from around the world. It's being part of a huge community where everyone shares the same appreciation for Babylon 5. Subscribe at patreon.com/Babylon5First. That's the number 5 and the word first to get access to these incredible benefits. That's patreon.com/Babylon5First. We can't wait to see you there. So I thought that Gray 17 was going to be a sector or a part of the Gray sector that was going to be, they were going to fake that it was kind of destroyed or whatever. And it's gone, it's missing. So they could repurpose it as a ranger training facility. Figured that with Sinclair being gone, with all the strife on Minbari, they were going to move it to Babylon 5. I also thought that they were going to have the facility be run by Marcus. So it was a ranger-oriented episode that had nothing to do with the Gray 17 piece. And Marcus was certainly in it. And we definitely touched on the strife from Minbar. So I get credit in the spirit of sort of a sense, I think.
I'll give you half credit on that.
Cool. What did you think it was going to be?
Well, I had one of two things. Like you, I said that it was going to be a section of the ship that was missing, like literally just gone. Perhaps like blipping in and out, like as a leftover effect from last week. From the thing, although that was Babylon 4, not Babylon 5, but still weird stuff happens. Somebody brought a time thing on and it made something weird. It was going to be something like that. Or I thought that Gray 17 could be code for a secret agent, like a Gray Council secret agent, which until they reminded us in this episode that the Gray Council has actually been disbanded. I was like, well, that's probably not it then. But that's what I thought. So I got Gray 17 and section is literally missing.
Yeah.
It wasn't blipping though, and there was absolutely no secret agent. So
it was a very apparent agent. There was no secrecy at all.
Well, Jeff, for those out there who are listening to us who haven't seen this episode in a while, or maybe they've never actually seen this episode and they're just listening to us anyway, which cool. Why don't you tell the folks out there at home what this episode was actually about?
Well, after all of the events of the last 2 episodes, which covers like 1,000 years in story. So a little bit happened in those. We're basically back to business as usual on Babylon 5. They're all in on the telepathic approach to taking down the shadows and are hosting an open casting call. They're putting ads on Indeed and LinkedIn jobs, even buying a bunch of Facebook and Instagram ads. Everybody is applying for this thing, but it's exhausting work. So Sheridan and Ivanova decide to find Franklin and see if he still has his files on the Underground Railroad. The ones he was apparently keeping on his main station computer? Whew. Well, he still has a backup of them, at least. He agrees to let Ivanova have them as long as they just leave me alone. I said leave me alone. I mean it, guys. I mean it. Stop talking to me. Well, to be fair, I mean, the show's not softballing this addiction thing, and he's going through some really tough withdrawals. So despite the voice there, grace is offered. With Sinclair gone, like completely gone, I mean, they don't even say his name in this one. Like he's just Ranger 1. But with him gone, they need a new Ranger 1. And most people, or some people, want that to be Delenn. But in the time leading up to her ceremony to name her as Ranger 1, Naroon shows up. We remember Naroon, right? Well, he accuses her of power mongering and low-key threatens to kill her so he and the warrior caste can have the Rangers, just like they had 1,000 years ago. And what a day all of this led to. Marcus was assaulted after he challenged Naroon. Then someone got into the Ranger ceremony, which was Naroon after he beat down and maybe even killed Marcus, where Naroon ended up pledging his support to Delenn after much activity. He then visits Marcus in MedLab, and they connect, warrior to warrior. The ceremony was beautiful, though, even with the extracurricular violence. Jakar was even there, but no Kosh. Maybe this Kosh isn't wise to the Rangers, right? Also, there was no Marcus at the ceremony. He was off fighting Naroon. That's the extracurricular violence. And there was no Garibaldi there either. Well, where was he? Well, first, there was this missing maintenance man. Only he wasn't missing. He was killed by a Zarg. But I'm getting ahead of myself. That was after Garibaldi found out that the entire 17th floor of Gray Sector had completely disappeared. Well, not disappeared exactly. This weird cult had taken over the place, see? And there was a dummy that shot tranquilizers out of its eyes. It was very strange, but it was all supposed to be perfect. That was the thing about it. And there wasn't a way out, but there was, except it was spiritual, and you had to die a perfect death. That's where the Zarg came in, and either it was going to kill me, or kill Garibaldi, or he was going to kill it. And am I going too fast for you? Because I think that covers it. Brent, how did you first react to Gray 17 is missing?
Okay, so Jeff, I have a confession to make.
Okay.
You know, we do our best to keep this show, not the show, but to keep us, you and me specifically, spoiler free.
Oh yeah, we work very hard.
Like, we try very hard. Sometimes it doesn't always happen. Sometimes stuff slips through the cracks. Now, I don't know if you've heard about this, but I heard not too terribly long ago that the episode titled Gray 17 is Missing. And the reason why that episode stuck out to me is because we have our friends over at the Gray 17 podcast who, you know, for you and me, like, why did they name their show Gray 17 Podcast? I don't know. We'll probably find out. So I've, you know, that's kind of been keyed into my brain. Like, I'm listening for what Gray 17 is, you know what I mean? Which I have some questions for Scott.
Totally.
Still, after watching this episode. Scott, I love you. We got to talk. Spoiler free. But I just don't understand. But whatever. So I had heard that Gray 17 is Missing was actually considered a really bad episode. So bad, in fact, that JMS has apologized for it.
What?
Now, I didn't know what for. I'm not sure if it was like the whole episode itself or just one aspect of it. I don't know. But what I heard was Gray 17 is Missing is a bad episode in the middle of a lot of good stuff. And JMS was so embarrassed by it that he apologized for it.
Really?
So I came into this episode with expectations that were so low. That may be, I say that to say, that may color everything I'm about to say.
Okay, that's fair.
I don't understand why JMS would have apologized for this episode.
Oh.
Is this a top 5 episode or even a top 10 episode? No. But is it a bottom 5 episode? No. Is it a bottom 10 episode? Maybe, but there's only 22 episodes in a season. So you're talking 11 and 11 on top half and bottom half. And keep in mind that season 3 has been a really, really strong season.
Yeah.
You know, so could it find itself in the bottom half? Yeah, it could. But I don't know that it was that bad. I think you take this episode and you place it in season 2 or season 1, and it's easily a top half of the season type of an episode.
Yeah.
The whole Gray 17 thing, the namesake of this episode, the Zarg, the cult, I want to call it what it was. It was goofy, and it was goofy as hell. It was just, why is this here? You could have cut that part of the show out and it wouldn't have made a difference to the rest of the episode. The part about Delenn taking over the Rangers, the part about Naroon threatening to kill her, and then Marcus coming to defend, and then Naroon having a face-to-face with Marcus in the hospital and that changing who Naroon was as a person, that was so good.
Yeah.
And it was so masterfully done. So maybe I was just braced for this whole episode to be like really, really bad. And I found this episode rather compelling. Now, I have been trained by Star Trek and other 90s sci-fi shows to kind of, you sort of look over the bad a little bit, you know, and I know people are out there, oh yeah, but what about season 2? Okay, listen, you find the gold in as much as you can. Doesn't mean it's a great episode, but there was some stuff about this episode that I really liked and I found very, very compelling, and enough to be like, I would absolutely watch this episode without fault. Like, I would be like, oh yeah, hey, this episode's on cool. You know, I like this episode. This episode and this may be getting a little bit too much into the other side of it, but this episode reminds me in many ways of the episode TKO from season 1.
Really?
It's one plot is very compelling. The other plot is just stupid and goofy. I'm not sure that the two plots of this episode work together as a metaphor for each other the way that it did back in TKO, But hear me out, Jeff. Is there something about the cult being trapped in a level with no way out but death being a metaphor for how Neroon comes into this episode trapped by his own racism and his own superiority, and there's no way out from that but death? And then there's, in this case, we have Marcus, whose loyalty and self-sacrifice and his honor as a warrior shakes Neroon out of that complacency, like Garibaldi shook Jeremiah and all of those guys and found a way out that wasn't death. And maybe am I reading too much into it? Absolutely. I probably am, because I'm a Star Trek podcaster, and that's what we do, is we read way too much into stuff. Was this what JMS intended when he laid out this episode? Maybe. And maybe the reason he apologizes is because it wasn't as clear. You know, the fact we saw him do it in TKO just means to me he's going to do it more than just once, because those two plots in TKO were so masterfully woven together.
Well, we saw it in the second, I forget which episode, but there was an episode in the second season. I think it was the second season that did the same thing.
You're right. I remember being an episode that did that, but I don't remember which one it was. This might be that episode for this season. Maybe it didn't work as well, but I still thought that the episode was fine, good enough. And especially where my expectations were so low, I liked it better than I thought I would. Jeff, how about you?
One of the first thoughts I have is, throughout our journey on Babylon 5, we have sparked tremendous debate around our viewing order, right? People have a lot of feelings on viewing order. John Krikorian with the Trek Profiles podcast gave us his definitive viewing order list. We committed before day one that this is how we're going to watch the show. And time again, we have defended that point. And I am so thankful that's what we did here, because I don't know which viewing order, but the viewing order many people were recommending was War Without End 1, War Without End 2, Walkabout, Gray 17 is missing. I think having Walkabout before the WWE episodes made a ton of sense with the new Kosh and the stuff and whatever, and then slide us into this big thing. The thing is, if we had watched the WWE episodes and then come into Walkabout and then come into Gray 17, we liked Walkabout, right? It was okay. This, it's okay.
Yeah.
This has some serious high point. I mean, I loved everything about the Minbari and Ranger stuff that happened. But to have done Walkabout and this together would have been a serious letdown after War Without End. Now, I say that we haven't seen the next episode, so maybe it may still be in for that ride, but I don't think that's the case. That cult stuff, I want desperately to believe what you're saying, because then it makes it mean something. It was so bad. And I felt bad for Robert Englund. I love Robert Englund. He's so good. And people know him as Freddy Krueger, right?
Yeah,
just
right?
Hilarious and snarky and evil and all this stuff. What I am 100% sure members of our community out there remember Robert Englund from is being Willie in V, the kind-hearted, innocent visitor who came and joined with the Resistance and then helped support the Fifth Column. He was great in that, but he had this timidity that we never saw in Freddy Krueger that really shone through in his Jeremiah character. I thought it was great. I thought he was good for what he was supposed to be. Kind of arch, kind of over the top, but also I felt like that was sort of the tenor they were going for a little bit. But it didn't make any sense. The Zarg was I think that the big organic tech monster in Infection looked more believable and menacing than this Zarg. That thing was, hey, do we have some random rubber laying around that we can just slap on a dude? What?
The seasons of Babylon 5 are supposed to be like in order of a year. Like they go like from January to December, right?
Yeah.
And so this late in the year, we've got to be around like Halloween, right? So those Spirit Halloween stores are open. You know, you just go down to the local Spirit Halloween, grab you a costume. Here we go.
You know they've got one on the Zocalo. Yeah.
Screen ready. Let's go.
That helps everything make more sense. But I liked the fact that Franklin is actually experiencing like withdrawals and stuff. I liked that. But Brent, I loved the Minbari stuff in this. And Neroon, I've got a lot. I got a lot to talk about Neroon when we dive into this. That was really well done. Again,
I don't know what JMS was apologizing for. Maybe he was apologizing for the Zarg.
Like he should.
Fine. You know, and like I said,
or for the stupid gun. I'm sorry. Let's just go there, right? So early in the episode, right, when Garibaldi and Zach are hanging out, which, by the way, how cool is it that Garibaldi and Zach are cool again?
Right. You know what I need to complete that? I need Lou. Remember Lou?
Lou, whatever happened to Lou?
I think he got replaced by Zach. He got recast.
He's probably looking around and he's just like, this things aren't going to go well here. I'm out.
Right. He's on, you know what it is? He's on Delta shift.
Just like the maintenance guy who got pulled down, who had a prototype version of the Rodecaster Pro. I'm having a hard time hitting the right buttons over here.
Okay, let's talk about that. Okay, let's talk about the cult. Let's talk about the Gray 17 piece and then be done with it, because the real meat of this really is over in Darun. Okay, the dude's sitting there in this little shaft going, I can't find any electrical thing. Oh, look, there it is. About that time, maybe a minute before that, or just a few seconds before, I saw the name Robert England. And then this thing happened, and I went, this is a horror episode. And you know how sci-fi does horror, Jeff. It's not good.
No.
It's never good. So I was ready for it. I was the whole thing. I was like, let's go. I'm here for it. Let's get stupid with this. Let's go. And when it sucked him down, I was like, this is Freddy Krueger. Let's go. It was so long before we got back down here to the Gray 17 stuff. Now, the pistol thing, I 100% hear what you're saying about the pistol thing. From a narrative standpoint, you had to have that so he could have the bullets later.
Well, I thought it was cool. Last week we talked a lot about subverting expectations. And I like when they're playing with the rifle, what they call it, slug thrower, or something they called it. I'm like, oh, we have a literal Chekhov's gun right here.
Right.
Look what we're playing with. But no, they went a whole different route. It was Chekhov's ammo.
Right.
Where he's like, I just happen to have a couple loose bullets here in my pocket.
And I can turn them into actual bullets with hammer and steam pipes.
So you cannot do that. When Captain Kirk was on Cestus 3 fighting a Gorn in Arena, he got gunpowder and he got it into a little bamboo shoot and he blasted Gorn in the face. Highly effective, right?
Except it would have blown up in his face in real life. But go ahead.
But that's what would have happened with this. It was a steam pipe. So he throws these bullets in the steam pipe and then holds it up. Do you know? Let me. I know you know this, but for our listeners out there, let me just take you down a short little physics lesson. When super hot steam pushes from the back end of a tube or a pipe, it superheats the first thing it touches, which is the bullet that's in the back. So either it blows up in the tube and blasts Garibaldi's face into oblivion, or it shoots all the bullets out at once. And actually, none of those things would happen because that steam didn't have the pressure nor the temperature to push a bullet. That was the dumbest put together. That costume aside, Brent, what? Really?
Jeff, you're not wrong. But at what point did you look at that and go, this is serious right now? You saw Robert England is in this episode. You saw dude sitting in the little man trap thing or the little manhole thing and get sucked down. At what point did you think this was going to be serious? Like at some point you just got, look, I'm going to go get some popcorn and we're going to embrace the cheese, man. Let's just go. I'm going to go with them. And by the way, the other half of that episode was just amazing. Okay. So he gets pulled down. Jeff, I freaked out. It was my favorite part of the whole episode. It's the first time we meet Jeremiah, Robert England, right? Mm-hmm. And he's there in the pulpit and he's talking and he's starting to monologue and he's not making any sense whatsoever the way a cult leader does. And guys, if you're an audio listener to this show, I beg you, please go to the YouTube channel, go to our video on this week and go to the 40-minute and 25-second spot of this video because I'm going to shit. Robert England leans in and he holds his hand up and he just puts his hand in that position and it's the Freddy hand. Totally. Like I could see the knives coming out and he looks at it and it's the hand. I lost it because it's Freddy Krueger and oh my God, it was so good. It was so good. And he made No sense. And then Garibaldi and he, Gray 17 is missing. Gray 17 didn't look like it was missing. And it went 16, double floor down. And then the next, when it opened, it didn't say 18. It said 17, I think, right? So Gray 17 was there.
It said 17 on both floors. So there's 16, 17, 17. Someone just rigged it so that it went past the first 17. What?
Yeah, none of that made sense. Jeff, none of that made sense. And here's the thing. I didn't care. I just didn't care. I was in it for the B-rated horror film that this was in that part. You get that dummy that comes in and turns and starts talking and then it shoots you in a dart. Jeff, I hope to God that JMS has a credit, a writing credit, a producing credit, a story inspired by for every single Saw film that is out there. You know what I mean? Because that thing was the origin of Jigsaw.
Totally. Yeah, with the eye. I mean, the eye.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, that thing was so creepy. And you're right. You get to the Zarg and yeah, we're cults. We're going to go be eaten by the Zarg and we're just going to give ourselves up to the Zarg and he's going to do some stupid whatever to kill the Zarg. Turns out you just got to shoot him with a bullet and it only has to hit once. Then they're going to go take his pulse. It was so awful, but it was just so fun. Like, I can't blame it. Like,
and I can't, but here's me not letting, I can't suspend my disbelief that, I mean, Jeremiah totally suspended my disbelief. Nothing he did made sense or was whatever, but it was perfect for that character, right? Like I got it. Anglin nailed it. All of his followers looking at him, nodding on, the whole thing. Great. Awesome. All in for that. Here's where it all falls apart for me though. Once we know about the Zarg, I'm like, okay, so the Zarg can reach up and pull maintenance dude down through the little manhole thing or whatever. Why can't he take 2 inches further and just climb out?
Right.
And just be in the station.
Right.
Like, why is he staying on that level?
Well, because he keeps getting fed by the cult folks down there in Nevada.
Yes.
Why's he got to go? His food supply is right there.
But some cool stuff though. I noticed when Garibaldi went down from the tranquilizer Jigsaw guy, was there these old newspapers stacked up, some old Universe Todays. Did you see those?
I did not.
So it went down. I paused. The second time I watched it, I paused on it to look. So there's one stack that was on the screen left that said Santiago reelected. So these are newspapers that would have come in early season 1, right? I forget if that wasn't Midnight on the Firing Line that he was elected, but right after maybe. And then just next to Garibaldi's head on screen right, there was a stack that said new captain appointed to Babylon 5. So that would have been right at the top of season 2.
Okay.
So Jeremiah talked about like being into the recycling stuff so they could, probably handle their waste and get some food and whatever. But like there's also some mechanism where they're, getting news and probably gear and stuff like that too. It's me just trying to piece together like what in this makes any level of sense.
None of it made sense. But that's the thing. Like, but I didn't care. I didn't care because it was honestly, the other half of the episode was so compelling that I was like, whatever. Like they should have named it something. They should have named it There's a New Ranger 1 in town. And it would have, the rest of this you would have just written it off as a stupid B plot and not even thought about it.
And I stole almost word for word for my recap what Garibaldi said when he sat down to tell Sheridan what happened.
Uh-huh.
And like in my head, I'm like, oh, that was stupid. Garibaldi's line delivery of that whole thing makes it all worthwhile. That
Right?
was great.
Right. Okay. Just a couple of things that I thought was kind of funny. First of all, dude's comm, the maintenance dude's comm is a pin. It's like I have my little mechanical pencil here and I'm talking into my mechanical pencil and that's my communicator. Oh yeah. It was like they went to go shoot the episode and they're like, wait, we can't find that prop. And somebody's like, here, use this. Just use this. It's fine. Nobody will know. I love that. To go back to the floor, the missing floor.
Mm-hmm.
Gray 17 is a floor. So it literally was a section of the station that was quote unquote missing. That, okay, listen, it's missing like the Chamber of Secrets is missing. People know it's there. You have to. You can't be that stupid about it. Okay. But here's the thing. This is a true story. Did you know that in South Korea, buildings do not have a fourth floor?
A fourth floor?
A fourth floor.
Mm-mm.
You get into an elevator. There's the lobby. There's the second floor. There's the third floor. There's the fifth floor, sixth floor, seventh floor, all the way up.
Okay.
They do not have a fourth floor because the number 4 in Korea is considered bad luck. So nobody goes onto the fourth floor. So they don't have a fourth floor.
So like many buildings here in the States that don't have a 13th floor, but still totally. I mean, if you're on the 14th floor, you know what's up.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's the thing. Like, I'm not going to say that you're going to ever go into a building and it's not going to have a fourth floor, but there's no fourth floor. Like it just doesn't exist. So that just reminded me. And I know that having lived there. So right. That's firsthand information, not I read it somewhere on Facebook.
What were your thoughts on Franklin and that whole scene with Ivanova trying to get the files from him?
Well, you know, you said it was so good to kind of actually see him like going through the DTs on this, you know, the detoxes.
I mean, it wasn't good, right? To be clear, but it's the mid 90s and they were softball and stuff like this back then.
I'm glad that they showed him going through it, because when he went on Walkabout and he was not going through it, it kind of upset me.
Same.
And they even gave you a reason why. They said, hey, listen, it takes a while for stems to get out of your system. It just takes an extra bit of time. I was like, okay, cool. At least you address it. That part was fine. I wasn't sure. They could have written around that. They didn't need to have Stephen Biggs come in to do this one little scene for that week. Was it a Quark thing where he just shows up out of contractual obligation?
Maybe. Like, we got to pay you so much, so get in the makeup chair.
But it was a relatively small part of the episode. It made sense. The idea that they are trying to gear up for the Shadow War by contacting these telepaths and bringing them back to the station, bringing back the idea of the Underground Railroad that used to run through the station. I liked that part of the episode just on a continuity level.
You know what I just thought when you were saying that? I don't remember dude's name, but the telepath that was buddies with Jason Ironheart that kind of led.
Yeah,
led
the dude from like Switzerland or whatever.
Yeah, with the accent and everything. He has that very, very unique look. We're going to see him again. This is my longer term prediction. We're going to see him again, and he and Bester are going to have to work together to go accomplish a thing against the Shadows. There's going to be an episode with the two of them like having to get through their stuff. I very much look forward to those two coming together. I hope that happens.
I do not think that will happen, but if it does, I'm for it. I'm all like, because it's a great narrative piece, which you just described.
Don't crush my dreams, Brent. Don't crush them. I have so few left.
That's one of those things, Jeff. People out there are like, well, I guess you're going to be disappointed, or they're like, oh my God, he just nailed it.
I like sci-fi from the 90s. I'm used to disappointment. It's fine. I want things. It's all right.
To go back to the Franklin thing, you referenced it a little bit in your recap, but he kept his files on the main computer. On his work computer. What did you label it under here? Illegal stuff that I'm involved in? Is it on there? But did you catch the code name of the file?
That was great.
For the Underground Railroad. The code name is Harriet. That was cool.
Well, one, it was awesome, but also it's literally the same as being like, oh, don't go into my tax documents file. There's nothing there, Mom, that you need to see. Why is your tax document file 1.5 terabytes? What's in there?
You got some videos. But I mean, and for those of you out there who are like, I don't know, or maybe you are not from the United States and you don't understand this particular part of our history, back when the awful, awful, awful thing of slavery was around and existed 150 years ago now-ish, Jeff?
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. There was a lady named Harriet Tubman who was a former slave who escaped to freedom, but she continually came back into slave states to help lead current slaves to freedom in the North and using a thing called an Underground Railroad. So the fact his Underground Railroad, the file name was Harriet Tubman. That's the connection. And it was a cool, like they didn't shine this big bright spotlight on it, but it was a neat little connection. I liked it.
Yeah, if you didn't know, you just be like, oh, okay, that's the name of the file. If you know, you're like, that is beautiful. That is awesome.
Yeah, well done, JMS, for writing that in. Garibaldi in the elevator, when he's going through and he's doing the little counting thing. I thought that was a brilliant way of doing it. I never would have thought to do that, and honestly, I don't care. But you're telling me nobody riding that elevator was like, it's just a little bit longer between 16 and 17. Like that thing takes longer.
Well, and there's a piece too, former military, and again, I'm only speaking from my experience, but like when you're on a boat, and in a way, Babylon 5 is a ship, it's out there in space or whatever. It's one of the things I loved. One of the reasons I chose to serve on a submarine. It's the closest thing we can get to a spaceship, but everything about that. I mean, it doesn't matter what your job is, all the levels, where all the valves are, where all this stuff is. It's just part of the job. And they messed up. I mean, it says 20 decks, but there's only 19. What about the other sectors? Are they missing a floor? Because why only this one? And again, I think to your point, it can be a whole lot of fun as long as you don't even start almost thinking about anything. Then that whole thing can be fun.
Just go with it. Just
go with it.
Freaking go with it.
With Franklin, he went back to talking about his walkabout. I got to finish my walkabout. I just got to find myself, sit down. Wasn't that the point of the singer lady? Wasn't that the visualization of his walkabout?
That's what I thought it was. I 100% thought that was, and then he skulks off after the episode. By the way, you said this earlier, talking about the viewing order. I 100% get why people would want you to put walkabout in and then Grey 17 is missing, just for that one little connection, because it makes the time go by a little bit easier. I actually appreciated the distance.
Same,
because it made it feel like his walkabout was actually taking a very long time.
Mm-hmm. It's happening.
Right. And I don't know how the timeline of the station overlaps with all of this, but it allowed that to sit into it. It made it feel better to me.
Yeah, I just because our community would expect me to, feel some sorrow and sympathy for him in his detox time and whatever, just to prove that I have none and I still don't like Dr. Franklin at all. Brent, this was serious narcissist behavior from him, wildly toxic, wildly unhealthy. He's going to throw that kind of fit for a friend needing help, just to give out critical information that could literally save the universe, possibly. Yeah. It's hey, I need this thing, buddy, that can save billions. Well, I don't feel good. Yeah. And also the fact that this is all for information from him running a wildly illegal operation that Sheridan and Ivanova were like, hey dude, it's cool. It's they gave him a pass. Mm-hmm. And now he's getting all up in their stuff for I don't know. People desperately want me. I don't know if they want me to like Franklin. I think what they want me to do is admit I'm wrong, but he keeps proving I'm right.
The only thing that I could do to play devil's advocate and come to Steven's defense here is, one, when you're going through DTs like that, you're not nice. You don't really know what you're saying or care. You're just kind of in your own thing. The other thing that I will say is from a narrative standpoint, a production standpoint, this also could be hey, here's why you're not going to see him for an episode or two, because he just told you, get out of my face, mm-hmm. And he's off making a movie, or his wife just had a baby and he's taking some time off of the show, or whatever reason he's not in the main part of the show. They just gave you the reason for him to not be there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think we got to talk about Neroon and Delenn and that whole situation, because frankly, that was the meat of this episode.
Yeah, this is the show right here.
Neroon comes in, and actually one of the first things that I noted when he came in and he talked to Delenn was it confirmed that the Grey Council is completely disbanded, which honestly I had both forgotten about, and I wasn't sure if the actions actually meant there is no more Grey Council.
Yeah, I remembered it had happened, but I was like, it happened, right? They walked out, and we haven't gotten any follow-up.
Right. Because she said, disband the council and follow me, and half of them followed, and one person grabbed somebody else's shoulder, and they're like, get away from me. And they went on. So, this is a confirmation that, yes, that happened. There is no more Grey Council. What does this mean for the government of Minbar? This has been a while now.
Yeah.
So what's going on? Is there a civil war brewing between the cast? They seeded that possibility in this episode, that if something happens, this could erupt in a civil war on Minbar. Oh my gosh. What an awful time to have a civil war come to Minbar.
Yeah.
Right? Also, the need for a new Valen.
Yeah.
Which is apparently Delenn.
Or David. I'm not going to let it go.
Oh, yeah.
You don't drop the kid and the kid's name without him having some sort of a destiny.
Naroon had this line, though, that I just found absolutely disgusting. He said...
Just one?
Well, but it's the one that I wrote down. He said, talking specifically about the Rangers, but he's talking about Minbar society as a whole at the same time. He said, to dilute their purity by allowing the humans to enter in or mix in or whatever his exact word was. I was like, wow. It lines up with what he was saying when he kicked Delenn off the council. It's just the, Sure.
I remember my comments around that were all around like, dude's all racial purity. Like that's his thing. But I think not to go to the end of that yet, though, but I think it makes the end of this hit that much harder that they had him be so explicit about it in this episode again. Sure. And I mean, and it's backed up. There was an episode back in season 2. I don't remember the name of it, but where Sheridan was set up as a dude who killed somebody. And there was one of Lanier's own castmates or the third house of Chudomo. Yeah. His Chudomo mate was like the guy. And he was just like, I'm not even recognizing Delenn as a person anymore, and so that this has certainly been established that this is something about Minbari culture. One thing they also said was no Minbari has killed another in over 1,000 years. Well, that immediately now tells us Sinclair Valen, since he became a thing, no Minbari has killed each other without a great council, which has also existed for the last 1,000 years. Yeah. I mean, Jeff, are we looking at the press? Are we standing on the precipice of a Minbari civil war despite what happened at the end of this episode? I don't know if it's a civil war, but I think it's definitely a collapse of their known society. Mm-hmm. So we can assume that Valen went back, or Sinclair went back, and then as Valen reformed Minbari society. And so that time, his reformation of that society is dead. It's dying. We're watching it die. And so I think part of the conclusion of the series is going to be the re-reformation, so from this point forward, maybe not civil war, but definitely civil strife. Yeah. By the way, I just, particularly in this episode, I can't hear the word Rangers, getting the Rangers together. I can't hear that word without thinking Power Rangers. Go Power Rangers. Yeah, I never watched Power Rangers, but I felt the same. I'm just like, it bothered me that they kept saying Ranger 1 and not Entil'Zha, because Ranger 1 is such a human thing to say. Does Entil'Zha mean Ranger 1? I think so. I think, like, if you translate it, I think that's supposed to mean Ranger 1. I still have questions if there's some sort of weird connect to the idea of Zahadum and whatever. I did go to Google Translate and I said, what does Entil'Zha mean in English? And it just called me a nerd. So Fair enough. Hey, let me ask you, do you think Naroon was right, though, in his concern? About Delenn? About Delenn using the Rangers to consolidate her power. She's a powerful leader of the religious caste, despite everything else that's happened with her. And now she wants to control this military arm. Like, I mean, put yourself in Naroon's shoes. Like, this isn't just him looking to grab power. Like, there's a little bit of like hey, wait a minute. Let me read you my exact note. Naroon thinks she's empire building. I can see where he would think that, and I'm not sure he's wrong. I don't know that she's doing it intentionally. Yep. But also, I don't think that Delenn does things unintentionally. You know what I mean? So it's like, let me rephrase it. I don't think she's doing it maliciously, but I think there may be some undercurrent political intent behind what she's doing. Well, but also for Delenn, okay, think about what she now knows coming off of War Without End parts 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. She is the one, and she is the one now. Who is. Yeah, that's what I mean. And if she is going to be the one, then yeah, she has, that's a clear, open and shut, then I'm the one to lead. I mean, and we've seen Delenn do this, hey, here's this prophecy and somebody's got to do it. Well, it's going to be me. Oh, hey, you're the one. Well, I guess I'm leading the Rangers then. Well, hey, you're the one. Well, I'm going to hook up with Sheridan, I guess, and we're going to have babies. By the way, did you note just how much more chummier Sheridan was with Delenn after going to the future and seeing where they wind up together? I found it fascinating because I talked last week about that first kiss being kind of upsetting to me because it was a first kiss, but not a first kiss or whatever. But then I thought it's going to be not fair again because when they actually have their kind of for real first kiss, it'll be his second kiss. Like they as a couple have been robbed of a true first kiss. And if this was created by Disney, that would have massive implications.
Well, Delenn would be asleep forever, or Sheridan would just be asleep forever.
Yeah, he's the princess. He is the princess in this story, I think for sure. But I thought it was great because like they were watching everybody go through, and I mean, he's just high school, arm around her and leaning in.
Oh yeah, and she's putting her head on his shoulder.
Yeah, it was so sweet. But it was cool they connected, and I was touched by her story about her, like especially about her dad when she shared that story about her dad. So the story is that, you know, there was a tradition that when they went to temple, he would carry her up on his shoulders and they would go in. And one day he looked at her and said, "You're too big to go on my shoulders." And I don't know, a couple months ago, you and I were talking about our daughters. Our daughters are close in age.
Yeah.
And like my daughter, she's very tall, but she is a very, very light child. And so I can still pick her up and carry her. Not easily, but I can. And it's a pretty normal thing. Like at the end of the day, well, she'll stand at the foot of the stairs and she wants an uppie.
Yep.
And I will go out of my way to make sure I can give her that uppie because I know that one day I won't be able to. Like there's going to be a last time I pick up my daughter. And I'm not going to know when that time is, you know, till after it has happened. It's almost like Andy Bernard in The Office when he says, "Wouldn't it be cool if when you're in the good old days, you knew you were in the good old days?"
Right.
And I feel like that's picking up your kid. But I loved how she added that piece that when he said that, you know, "You're too big, I can't carry you anymore." And she's like, I looked at him and for the first time I knew that I was going to lose him one day. And I loved him more than I ever had before. Because as we would say, he became more human in that moment. I kept waiting for her to say, you know, he became more Minbar to me in that moment. But I thought that I really liked that story. I thought that was great.
So Lanier goes to Marcus because he's been given an order and he can't do some stuff. I loved his reasoning for going to Marcus. I am loving Lanier more and more. Like, cause he knew he had to do something and he figured something out of what he had to go do. And I loved that he made something happen. But I want to talk about the Naroon Marcus fight. Okay. First of all, the set design, it was a simple, easy set. Now I say that as a person who doesn't build sets, but it was a simple, easy set. The lighting for that set was amazing.
Yep.
Coming through the fan with the fan rotating like that and what that did, what that allowed the cinematographer to do and for the directors and all, like it was a beautifully done set. And I loved that whole scene, that whole part.
It was very Empire Strikes Back. Right. When Luke and Vader are when they're still in Cloud City fighting before they get to the outside, it had that feel too. And the fight had that feel too. I think this is one of those moments we've talked about the evolution of Babylon 5's production value.
Mm-hmm.
They could not have done this scene in the first season at all. Second season would have been okay. Like this scene could only happen for them now the way that it did. And I think because of the set design, the lighting, and just they were able to get these nice wide shots, these really nice close-up shots, and it allowed for an edit that really made it look like the Naroon and Marcus actors were like there was no obvious stunt fighting happening. You know, even today, in a lot of stuff when they're having a fight scene, it's like, oh, there's the stunt actor doing the thing, and this was cut together so smoothly. There were times I wondered, I'm like, did they do all of this themselves? Like, really well done.
Oh, I 100% believe that was the actors for Marcus and Naroon doing all of those pieces. I will say though, as much as I loved the set, the fight choreography though, I often felt like I was watching fight choreography and not watching a fight. And many times, like I couldn't tell who was actually attacking whom. Like I just didn't know. They looked like they were going through motions they've practiced 15 times before.
And they had similar outfits, which helped cover some of that. But there was one scene in particular, Naroon's getting the upper hand and Marcus ends up on his knees facing a wall.
Uh-huh.
And what's supposed to happen, is my guess, is Naroon comes down for that death blow to the back of his head and boom, he gets his pike up. But what happened instead is he got his pike up, and then Naroon hit his pike. Yeah, and it was just like there's no way that arc of attack would have ever even hit him. But I mean, come on. I talk about how I can't suspend disbelief for your Gray 17 stuff. Just come on, Brent, suspend your disbelief for this stuff.
Oh no, I suspended my disbelief, but I was still like, But hey, you know what? For a fight like that on mid-90s television, not bad. Not bad. I couldn't have done better. Okay. I don't know if you've ever heard this saying before that Marcus the Ranger spoke while he was in the middle of his fight.
I don't think I've ever heard it. Yeah.
I don't think, but there's two pieces that jumped out to me. One, I stand on the bridge and none may pass. You shall not pass.
We've heard about JMS's love of Tolkien. Like that's 100%.
100%.
Bloop. Yeah.
Yeah. But then he says this, and this means something different after last week. We live for the one, we die for the one. And right now, the one is Delenn.
Mm-hmm.
Live for the one, die for the one. And I wrote that down, and turns out that would be the crux for the rest of the episode.
Yeah, weird, right?
Brilliant writing, Jeff. Brilliant writing.
And the acting for it too is so good. I think Naroon did I forget the actor's name, and I feel like a jerk for forgetting his name because he's so good.
Mm-hmm.
But what he brought to that character was that inner strife. Like during that fight, you brought TKO up earlier, so I'm going to bring it up again, where I really have this strong belief because of my professional background that martial arts, combat fighting is such a great way to express inner, not inter, but inner personal turmoil and conflict. And that's what this fight was, right? What we saw was Marcus is truly a ranger and fully believes in the one, like without question. And that's great. Cool. We kind of assumed that, but now we have it confirmed. He was fully willing to die. But Naroon, whatever. I can win this fight whenever I want. Boom, broke one of your ribs. Boom, two. Come on, dude, just give up. I can make this easy for you. The reason he didn't just kill Marcus is because he knew there was more going on. And he felt personally, and we'll talk about it, when we get to our closing thoughts specifically, but his ability, the actor's ability to show that facially through the fight was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that last scene was, Marcus flayed out, blood clearly on his last moment. And you had that shot of Naroon with the pike right at him. And if he was going to kill him, the end of that scene would have been boom, the pike boom, coming towards the camera. I wish that scene had happened. Right. But we found that it was him just, moving it away. I think it would have added a little more punch to when he walked into the ceremony. But God, it was just, they told such a story in that fight that to me, that's part of what forgave some of the not so great choreography.
So to go back to the idea of an impending civil war with what comes next. Okay. Despite the laughter we heard at the end between Naroon and Marcus, Naroon comes in and he declares Delenn Entil'Zha.
He does.
But at the same time, and he says that line, they would die for you, but they wouldn't die for me. Like, amazing line. But he throws the pike down on the ground and it's covered with blood. And he says, there's now blood between our castes. And there's blood between the warrior caste and the humans. Did that resolve at the end of this episode? Or is that something we're going to pick up in a future episode or set of episodes coming up here soon?
So I have a theory.
I want to hear it.
So there was the episode, and I'll talk about it in my closing thoughts as well, but we met Naroon in Legacies.
Okay.
And Legacies,
because he was doing that thing with he was taking somebody's body on a tour, right? Yeah. Yeah.
And the big, I forget his name, but the person was a friend of Delenn's, and it was the big military commander during the Earth Minbari War who was religious caste, but switched, and went and worked. I don't know if he switched to warrior caste, but he basically took the job of a warrior caste person.
Well, my remembrance of that was he was half and half. His mother was of one, his father was of the other, and he was raised according to, I guess, his mom. But when the time came, he had to become warrior, and that's part of how the religious caste gained so much power, was because he was really straddling the fences both. But the man was legitimately both warrior and religious caste.
And religious. Okay.
That's my remembrance of it. Somebody out there is typing going, no. And that's cool.
It's cool. Please don't tell us, actually. We'll catch it on the second watch through. But I think assuming, I want to assume, we don't know, Neroon might have some similar ancestry, because what I think is going to happen is that the next step is the warrior caste rising up pre-Civil War. But to seal that breach and to cleanse the blood between the castes, Neroon is going to switch to religious caste.
Wow.
In the footsteps of his idol,
yeah,
who he paraded around in legacies. And because what he learned today is the unfortunate truth that Delenn, he doesn't know about the one, or whatever. That I don't know if that means anything to him, but he knows that Delenn has real power. And you can be on the side of power and rise, or you can fight it and lose. And I think he's I think he basically threw his hat in through the pike with Delenn, and I think he's going to become religious caste, and that'll save everything.
I want to challenge you just a little bit on he's throwing his hat in because of the power, as much as what I want to believe is he understands the reason behind it, that it's really not about the power, but it's about, hey, actually there's something here that's bigger than all of us. You know what you describing that makes me think of, though? It makes me think of, was his name Drawl from the Troll Hunters show?
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
And for those of you, listen, guys, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but it's like an episode 3 spoiler, where in this particular case, the guy who was supposed to be the heir of the Troll Hunter now has to face off against the guy who has actually been chosen to be the new Troll Hunter, and he doesn't like it.
And he's a filthy human that became the Troll Hunter.
Yeah, and no, that's supposed to be mine. I was the next guy in line. That's mine. And he actually wound up having to, subservience, not the right word. What's the word, Jeff?
Mentor.
Yeah. This guy who actually took what was supposed to be his by birthright, supposedly. It wasn't, but it was supposed to be. But he wound up joining the team of this person who had what actually should have been his. That very much sounds like what's happening here with Neroon, at least as far as your prediction goes.
Totally. And I'll talk about it more in the closing thoughts, but there's the power that I believe he's attracted to, but it's not the power. It's what the power can accomplish.
Sure.
And it's a concept we've talked about with Londo, where he'll take on that emperor, role, not because he aspires to be emperor, but because he wants what's best for the Centauri people.
Right.
Neroon, throughout this whole thing, just wants what he believes is best for the Minbari.
Mm.
And he needs that power to do it.
So we're getting into that spot, Jeff, where it's time to really start analyzing it. And it's really going to come down to this last scene. Before we get there, though, I do just want to say, with Neroon and Marcus, isn't this really how it works amongst dudes a lot of times? Where, look, we can get into a fight, knockdown, drag out fight. But when the fight's over, we also can go have a beer with each other. Now, I remember the first time I ever experienced that for me growing up. I was in 7th grade, and I wound up getting into a fight with this dude who was in and out of juvie.
Ooh.
This was not a good guy. He reached up, flipped glasses off my face. I'm a big dude. I was always a big dude. So he and I stood toe to toe, and this guy was a bit of a bully, but we went at it. We really went at it. But as soon as that was over, this dude was he was looking at me. He's like, hey, if you ever wind up in juvie, I'll take care of you. Oh. I'll be. And this guy was my friend from that moment on. I don't even remember his name. He must have gone to juvie really soon after that, because I don't think I ever saw him too much longer after that. But if you are out there and you're watching, hey, what's up, man? I still remember you. But it really was that idea of just the amazingness of what it is. And I'm not saying this is a dude thing.
Right.
Okay. Please don't hear me wrong out there, folks. But just that ability of yeah, we can fight, but we can go have a beer too at the end and let the fight be done.
We had an experience about a year ago. My daughter, she goes to a Catholic school, and it's a different environment there. Mm-hmm. And it was early in the school year, but a fist fight happened.
Oh,
it's
no.
a pre-kindergarten through 8th grade school. So lots of ages. It was 2 middle school kids, and they got into a fist fight. And that's the first time my daughter had experienced anything like that before. A lot of the kids saw it. And so she came home and she had questions, and so, we were talking about using your words and conflict resolution and all the things that, as a parent, you're supposed to do. But my wife and I were talking afterwards about how fascinating it is. Exactly what you were talking about. I got into some fights when I was in grade school and middle school, and I know a lot of other people that did. And that was generally the experience. You roughed each other up for a couple days, your fist hurt, your face hurt, and then you were fine. Like, it was okay. But the school response, right, was like, you're suspended, expelled, you're never coming back to, like, it was this extreme response. Mm-hmm. But the lasting effects were minimal. Now kids go out and emotionally abuse, taunt, and traumatize people, mentally abuse, taunt, and traumatize each other with lasting impacts. In 40 years, these kids are going to be bringing this stuff in therapy with long-lasting impacts, and teachers and administrators in schools are like, all right, so stop it. Let's not do it. And it's that whole like misapplication of, to talk about justice, but it's like that fight is obvious and we know academically fighting is wrong. And so we can respond to that. But, it's more complicated about like the real hurt that we experience, and we don't take that as seriously. We just thought it was an interesting observation that we experienced.
Oh, well, Jeff, unless you have anything else.
Well, I think that it's a great segue for us to start talking about that talk specifically, which is where we start looking to see what kind of sci-fi, what kind of Star Trek-y message this episode has. I'm going to do that by rating this on a scale of 0 to 5 deltas. And Brent, you have the responsibility of rating this on a scale of 0 to 5 Starfuries, which is how much we liked it and how Babylon 5 the episode was. I'm going to go first. And it really does land in that whole kind of last scene with Marcus, Naroon, and Delenn and Lanier. Lanier and Delenn are talking, and Lanier says to her, you cherish life. Life is your goal. But for the greater part to live, some must die or be harmed in its defense. Now, I feel like I've heard that before, except it sounded a little bit more like the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the one. And the one, that takes on a whole new meaning for us now in Babylon 5. In Star Trek, Spock, for example, is willing to die to save the Enterprise crew at the end of the Wrath of Khan. In this episode, Marcus, willing to die for Delenn because her life and her new position will save countless lives. So now, like in this Babylon 5 episode, it's the needs of the many or the one outweigh the needs of the few, right? It flips that, and we capitalize it. But I love the take on this concept. You and I really appreciated Naroon eventually when he was in Legacies. He was laser focused on his goal. He was true to his beliefs, and he gave that textbook apology to Sinclair, or Valen. Sinclair. Yeah, it was Sinclair back then. But then he went all racial purist and super bad guy in All Alone in the Night when he fired Delenn. And now he started from that point, right? And dropped all that racial purity stuff again and ended pretty amazing because just like in Legacies, he was once again focused on his goal and his beliefs and his belief in the greater capabilities of the Minbari. Through that fight with Marcus, he was no longer blinded by his personal ego or by his feelings towards Delenn. I think in All Alone in the Night, it was made very clear that he has a lot of dislike towards her. But he sticks to his belief, and ultimately he ends up willing to die, or at least for his ego to die, because he admits that he was wrong. He admits that humans and Minbari, like you said, may share the same heart. He dies to self for what he believes in and what he believes is important to Minbari culture. For him, the needs of the many outweigh his personal vendetta, his feelings, and any personal aspirations that he had. The story between Marcus and Naroon, but also both of them being willing to die for what is foundational for them, which really Minbari culture, and in Marcus's case, Delenn as well. It's incredible. It alone, this whole Minbari thing makes this episode worth watching multiple times again. I'm going to skip ahead in some parts when I watch it again. But this one, based on this Star Trek message that is masterfully told in a way that only Babylon 5 can tell, I'm going to give this episode 3 deltas.
So you talk about comparing what Naroon said to the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the one.
Mm-hmm.
I actually want to go compare that to something else.
Okay.
I want to compare that to what Kosh/Jaquan told Jakar in his little vision, that in order to save them all, some must die. And I probably didn't say that exactly right, but it's that same general idea. And Jakar struggled with that concept of in order to save the whole, some are going to have to be sacrificed, right? Which isn't, it's not cozy. It's not pretty the way it is in Star Trek. It is very different. Lanier struggled to kind of get that same idea out. And he understands this concept. Like, we're not going to come out of this perfectly clean. There's going to be, it actually raises the question to me, who on the DVD cover as a character is going to die by the time this war is over? Now, we know Londo and Jakar die at the very end. That's a different situation. But, remember, Delenn told Sheridan in the future, the cost has been really high to secure the thing. Is Garibaldi sacrificed? Is Ivanova sacrificed? Please go ahead and sacrifice Franklin.
Yeah. That's fine. Don't sacrifice Lanier, but is he sacrificed?
Is Lanier sacrificed? Like who? And that's just the DVD cover. Oh, Zach. Oh, would you be heartbroken if it was Zach?
I'd be sad. I'll tell you what. I'm willing.
Hey, by the way, I'm sorry. Zach needs to join the spinoff of the sidekicks, right? Him and Veer and Lanier and Natoth can go away.
Well, I am willing to offer to the sacrificial points that are coming. I'm willing to offer Franklin, and I'm willing to offer Natoth. And you know what? Because he hasn't been around, I'll offer Lou as well. That's my gimme. I don't want to, but Lou has made his choice.
Yeah.
So hopefully that'll help save Lanier and the others.
I'll offer the new Kosh as well.
We don't even know them yet.
So my whole point in saying that, I think this episode and the value of this episode is inextricably linked to the Naroon Marcus Delenn storyline. And the enjoyment of this episode being an episode that JMS has had to apologize for, or feels like he has to apologize for, admitting that the whole Gray 17 stuff is junk. Okay. It's goofy. You can forgive it. It's popcorn munching, Saturday the 14th Strikes Back, not even really that good kind of a stuff. The gold of it is in this. What makes this episode enjoyable, Jeff, is what we would call the Star Trek message. And I said, put that in big air quotes, because to what you said, this did it in a way that only Babylon 5 could do. And we've done this before. I pulled it out a couple of weeks ago, but I think it's time to bring it back.
Yeah.
This episode it's not just, hey, did we like the episode and it's got Starfuries. This was an episode that meant something. It talked about something, and it did it in a uniquely Babylon 5 way, in a way that nobody else could do. So I give this one 3 Delta Furies.
I love it. And it is, like, to your point, there's just Babylon 5 for us has established itself as a mechanism for delivering these messages. That's the point of sci-fi. It's the point of art. It's the point of creation, is to tell difficult to hear and difficult to consume messages in a way that becomes consumable. And Babylon 5 is doing it in a way that no other series has been able to. And it has drawn us in ways that other series can't. And so I applaud your use of the Delta Fury. But Brent, your job isn't over. And in fact, you have a very difficult one.
I do.
Coming up right now, we are developing the definitive, objectively correct ranking of all of the episodes of the 3rd season of Babylon 5. Our current rankings have War Without End Part 2, War Without End Part 1, then Severed Dreams, Point of No Return, and then Ship of Tears. Gray 17 might be missing, but it needs to be ranked somewhere. Brent, where do you put it?
Jeff, this is an episode And I actually thought about this long before I got to this spot. So I've put a lot of thought into this one. I think this is an episode that is more valuable than people realize. I said earlier, this is the TKO of season 3. And I definitely, it's more than I have a chance to go through into this podcast. Maybe this will be Babylon 5 for the second time. I really want to go back and rewatch this and try to see the Naroon Marcus storyline through the eyes of the stuff happening with the Zarg, right? Like I feel like something's there that's just not connecting for me yet that I haven't been able to figure out. I hope it's there. That being said, I did find this episode rather enjoyable, but I think this episode is also important because of the message that comes from it. I don't think it's going to stay this high. I think we have 3 episodes left of the season, which is going to push, I think, this episode down. I'm assuming these are going to be fantastic episodes. So I am actually going to place this episode in the top half.
Really?
But not so far into the top half that if these next 3 episodes are killer, it will push it out of the top half. But I'm going to place this one right next to another episode that is not a, hey, let's run out and go watch this episode again. But we also said that it was a really important episode. I'm putting it right next to Passing Through Gethsemane, which is number 8. And I think Passing Through Gethsemane is actually more important than this one with the material that it goes into and what it covers with Brad Dourif and feelings of guilt and actually kind of a theme for the season that we said. So I'm placing it right between Passing Through Gethsemane and the season premiere of Matters of Honor, number 9.
Wow.
You put TKO in the top 5.
It's a great episode, though. I will die on that hill.
Yes,
and
you will.
In the vein of that, I will say that if I had arguments against your ranking, they don't matter. We don't get to argue. We don't get to argue that. But yeah, we do have more episodes to get to. So we'll see where this lands out, because this closes us out for Gray 17 is Missing. Next week, Brent, we are watching And the Rocks Cried Out, No Hiding Place for the first time. Yeah. And the Rocks Cried Out, No Hiding Place. Or is it And the Rock Cried Out? And the Rock Cried Out, No Hiding Place.
Wait, is this like 2 separate titles of the episode?
There's a comma.
Are there quotation marks? Like, did the Rock say no hiding place?
The Rock, it doesn't matter what the Rock said.
And the Rock cried out, no hiding place. Okay, that's it. That's what this is.
It's Sunkatsi.
This is the episode where we try to pull in the WWE figure of the day, right? We're cross promoting here.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's the Undertaker, it's Big Show, maybe I doubt it's the Rock. Maybe it is. I don't know.
Rock. This is 96, so Rock is just coming to us. It might be Shawn Michaels,
somebody like that. Right. Like
Steve Austin. Steve Austin's really hitting his stride right now.
But they're coming, they're hunting, and there's no place you can hide. They're coming to get you. There's no place you can hide because this guy's coming to get you. There
has been a decidedly Catholic theme to this season.
I was thinking that too, but yeah. I like the wrestler idea better. So go ahead. I'm glad you're picking up this theme. So go for it.
Because right when you hear The Rock, if you don't go Dwayne Johnson, you got to think about Peter, who's the rock of the church, first pope. And when I think Peter, I think apostolic succession. Mm-hmm. And when I think apostolic succession in Babylon 5, I think about Brother Theo and the monks that we haven't seen in a super long time.
Not since Passing Through Gethsemane, I think.
Right? So what I think is going to happen is I think that Theo and his crew are going to confront Londo about his atrocities.
Oh.
There's no hiding place, right? They're going to, no, this is what's going to happen. So they're doing their stuff, right? Trying to learn about the names of God. And they're going to talk to Jakar about Jaquan. And in that, he's going to talk about his dust to dust vision of Londo and how all of this is Londo's fault. And they're going to go to Londo and in the spirit of trying to get him to accept it and confess and ask for forgiveness and everything. And I don't think it's going to end well for Brother Theo. I don't think he's going to die necessarily in this one, but I could see him getting added to the to Londo's Morden list. kind of a thing, along with Rifa and his crew.
Are we going to see the person that replaced Brad Dourif?
Oh, wow.
Is he going to come back? And like, is Sheridan going to have to deal with his feelings about this dude again?
I think so. Cause I mean, we're in the last 3, right? This is heavy stuff. I think he is going to be faced with that. Ooh, I like that. But we're going to find out right here next week. Thank you all so much for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe or follow us wherever you're listening or watching, and go. We are doing our season 3 wrap up in just a couple of weeks from now. And in that wrap up, we're giving away not 1, but 2 Starfuries that were 3D printed and donated by our buddy Wash. They look incredible. And if you want to get your hands on one of these Starfuries, go to Apple Podcasts, go to Podchaser, Good Pods, any of those places, Audible, write us a rating or review. Not only will you be entered to win a Starfury, but we'll read it here on the podcast. So until next time.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah, man. What's up?
So I feel like I actually need to apologize.
Oh, for what?
Well, for Gray 17 is missing for this episode of the podcast. Like the whole part with the Zarg and trying to make it a metaphor for what was going on with Naroon, it just didn't really work. And I just want to apologize to you and the fans out there for trying to force that out there.
Brent, whatever it is, can't be that bad.
Oh, actually, I didn't think it was that bad either. I kind of liked the idea.
Good. Yeah. Okay. We got that settled. Totally agree. Peace, victory, and long life.
It's my first time.
Dude at the beginning trying to be a fake telepath to get a job.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
That's pretty great.
Jeff,
I'm a quick learner.
Listen, when we come back and we do like favorite moments of the entire, like, cause I kind of foresee like when we get to the end of the show, like we might actually do like episodes, like a bunch of top 5 lists.
Yeah.
And like one of those top 5 lists we should probably write this down so we don't forget it. But one of those top 5 lists should be something like top 5 best opening sequences of the show.